Have you ever noticed how the moment you stop checking your phone every 5 minutes, the text you are waiting for finally arrives? Or how the job offer comes through the day you genuinely stop caring whether you get it? There's something almost cruel about it, isn't it? Like life is playing a game with you, teaching you a lesson you never asked to learn. But what if that's exactly what's happening? What if your worry isn't protecting you at all, but actually pushing away the very things you're trying to hold on to? Machiavelli understood something about human nature that most people spend their entire lives refusing to accept. He saw that worry wasn't care. It was something far more dangerous. It was the illusion of control wrapped in the costume of responsibility. You tell yourself you're worrying because you're responsible, because you're planning ahead, because you're being realistic. But strip away the justification, and what remains? Pure fear. Fear that you're not enough. Fear that the world will expose you. Fear that if you stop white-knuckling your way through life, everything will collapse. Think about the last time you couldn't sleep. You replayed that conversation over and over, didn't you? You rehearsed what you should have said, what you'll say next time, what they probably meant, what they're thinking right now. You convinced yourself this was productive. You called it processing, but your body knew better. Your heart was racing. Your jaw was clenched. Your mind was running in circles because somewhere deep down, you believed that if you thought about it hard enough, long enough, you could control an outcome that was never yours to control in the first place. Here's what Machiavelli would tell you if he were standing in front of you right now. You have made yourself a slave to your own mind. Every minute you spend worrying is a minute you're handing your power to someone else, to some future version of events that hasn't happened and probably never will. Your attention has become currency, and you're bleeding it out to ghosts, phantom problems, imaginary disasters. You're so busy preparing for storms that haven't formed that you're missing the clear sky right above you. The truth cuts deeper than you want it to. Most of what you worry about will never happen. And the things that do happen, you'll handle them. You always have. Look back at your life. Every crisis you faced, you survived. Every moment you thought would break you, didn't. You adapted. You figured it out. You moved forward. So why are you still acting like you can't trust yourself? Why are you still checking the locks, running through scenarios, preparing speeches for arguments that don't exist yet? Because worry gives you the illusion that you're doing something. It feels active. It feels like you're taking precautions, being smart, staying ahead. But Machiavelli knew better. He watched rulers crumble, not because they lacked resources or intelligence, but because they couldn't sit still in uncertainty. They would overreact to every rumor, every shift in the wind. They would make decisions from a place of panic instead of strategy. And every time they did, they revealed their weakness. They showed the world exactly where to strike. That's what your worry is doing right now. It's not protecting you. It's exposing you. Every anxious text you send, every time you ask for reassurance, every moment you can't hide the fear in your voice, you're broadcasting to the world, I'm not in control. And the world responds accordingly. Opportunities slip away. People lose confidence in you. Not because you lack ability, but because you lack composure. And composure, Machiavelli would tell you, is the only real power that exists. Watch someone who seems to have life figured out. Not the fake confidence, not the loud bravado, but genuine calm. They don't always have the answers. They don't always know what's coming next. But they've mastered something you're still fighting. They stopped arguing with reality. When something goes wrong, they don't spiral into panic about what it means, what people will think, how to fix it immediately. They pause. They observe. They let the situation reveal itself before they make a move. That pause is what you're missing. Worry has stolen your ability to wait. It's convinced you that immediate action equals control, that if you're not constantly adjusting, checking, worrying, then you're being irresponsible. But that's the trap. Real power doesn't come from constant motion. It comes from knowing when to move and when to be absolutely still. A chess master doesn't make a move just because it's their turn. They make a move because it's the right moment. And in between those moments, they wait, they watch, they let their opponent reveal their strategy. Your life works the same way. Every time you've ruined something by worrying about it too much, what actually happened? You overthought a simple message and turned it weird. You kept bringing up a problem until it became one. You tried so hard to prevent something from going wrong that your very effort made it collapse. This isn't bad luck. This is cause and effect. Worry is like digging up a seed every day to check if it's growing. You think you're being careful, but you're actually destroying the only chance it had to take root. So what changes when you stop? Everything. But not in the way you expect. The world doesn't suddenly hand you everything you wanted. That's not how this works. What happens is far more subtle and far more powerful. You change. Your frequency shifts. You stop vibrating at the level of desperation, and life stops treating you like someone who needs to beg for scraps. You start moving through the world differently. Your voice carries more weight. Your decisions become clearer. People sense something different about you, even if they can't name it. Machiavelli watched this pattern repeat throughout history. The leaders who lasted weren't the ones with the most resources. They were the ones who could maintain composure when everything was falling apart. While others panicked, they stayed calm. And that calmness became magnetic. People naturally followed the stable presence in the room. They trusted the person who didn't flinch when the ground started shaking. This isn't manipulation. It's human nature. We gravitate toward certainty in uncertain times, even if that certainty is just someone's ability to not fall apart. You've probably experienced this yourself. Think about a moment when you genuinely didn't care about an outcome. Maybe you went to a social event with zero expectations. Maybe you applied for something just for practice, with no real hope of getting it. And somehow, those were the times things worked out. Not because you tried harder, but because you weren't trying at all. You were present without being desperate. You were engaged without being attached. And that energy, that frequency of not needing anything from the situation, created a space where things could actually happen. That's the paradox Machiavelli understood. The less you try to control outcomes, the more they bend in your favor. Not through magic, but through psychology. When you're not desperate, you make better decisions. You see opportunities others miss because your vision isn't clouded by fear. You speak with more authority because you're not seeking approval. You walk away from bad situations instead of clinging to them out of anxiety about what comes next. This is what real power looks like. Not domination, but detachment. Not force, but influence. But here is what stops most people from ever reaching this state. They confuse detachment with not caring. They think if they stop worrying, they'll become passive, indifferent, lazy. That's not what this is. You still act, you still plan. You still give your full effort to what matters. But you stop bleeding energy into things outside your control. You stop demanding guarantees from an uncertain universe. You do what needs to be done, and then you let it breathe. You plant the seed, and you walk away. You make the call, and you don't obsess over when they'll respond. You take the shot, and you accept that results aren't always immediate. This is what Machiavelli called strategic patience. It's not waiting passively. It's positioning yourself, and then allowing the right moment to arrive. Most people never develop this because they can't tolerate the space between action and result. They fill that space with worry, with checking, with interfering. And every time they do, they reset the clock. They interrupt the very process that was about to deliver what they wanted. Look at your own patterns. How many times have you sabotaged something by not being able to leave it alone? You sent that follow-up text that made everything awkward. You kept asking if everything was okay until people started pulling away. You revised that project so many times it lost its original energy. This is what worry does. It masquerades as improvement, but it's actually destruction in slow motion. And the worst part? You can't even see it happening because you're convinced you're being thorough, careful, responsible. The shift happens when you realize that your inability to wait isn't strength. It's fear. And fear, as Machiavelli knew, is the opposite of power. Power is the ability to remain unmoved while everything around you moves. It's watching the chaos without becoming part of it. It's feeling the fear without obeying it. This doesn't mean you never feel uncertain. It means uncertainty no longer dictates your actions. When you reach this point, people start noticing something different about you. You stop being the person who needs constant reassurance. You stop being the one who panics when plans change. You become someone who can hold space for the unknown without collapsing into it. And that quality, that unshakable center, becomes your greatest asset. Because in a world full of people who are constantly falling apart, the person who stays whole wins by default. This is how everything starts working out. Not because your circumstances change, but because you stop fighting them. You stop resisting what's already happening and start working with it instead of against it. You trust that you'll handle whatever comes, not because you've predicted every possible outcome, but because you know yourself well enough to know you always find a way. That trust, that inner certainty, changes how you move through the world. And the world, sensing that change, responds differently. Doors open. Opportunities appear. Not because you chase them, but because you finally stopped running away from yourself.